This is F.D. Recovery, where we interview addicts and alcoholics.
Our aim is that through this podcast, we might help you on your journey of recovery.
Thank you for listening. Hello, you are listening to F.D. Recovery, and I am your host, Frank. And this portion of the podcast is the weekly intention. We go week to week, new topic, new spiritual principle, whatever we come up with, and we talk about it. So this week is going to be talking on negativity. But before we dive into the whole negativity, we're going to recap on routine. So routine, right? Routine's good. Routine is good. How did that work in my recovery? So I just stayed on task, got my eating, got my disciplines back in order, right? Fine-tuned some of that, stayed with my meetings, my daily rituals, my daily choices I had to really hone in on, right? You can get kind of aimless if you don't allow yourself to be guided by some of these routines and some of these wisdoms we learn in recovery and some of these things we channel in our recovery, right? We start tapping in to our higher power, right? In our prayers and meditations, and we start basically tapping into all these techniques that we need to really utilize in our recovery. So routine is an important balance. It's a mixture of everything in my recovery that I've learned that keeps me well and on the path of recovery. But the routine is so important. If you guys are struggling with routine, you really got to incorporate some positive stuff into your life that can give you structure, whether it be a gym routine, whether it be a meeting routine, whether it be a therapy routine, physical therapy routine, movement, hiking routines, daily reprieves are very important, right? The connection with the higher power, the connection with your support group, connection with your health, very, very important. And that is all habitual choices that we do every single day that creates the path that we're walking on. So I urge you, if you don't think that a routine is important, or you kind of live your life sporadic and you're, one of those hippy dippies, I'll go with the flow, right? I urge you to get a little bit of structure in it. Don't get me wrong. Going with the flow is a learned technique. And, there are two people in life, right? There's people that are unbothered and going with the flow, and there's people with plans, expectations, and goals, right? And generally speaking, the people that go with the flow are a little bit happier, right? So I guess, at least that's my experience. I need to go. And as soon as things get stepped out of balance, it screws me up, right? So some of those people that just go with the flow willy-nilly, always late, they seem to be a little bit happier in the end because they're kind of rolling by the beat of their own drum, right? I think a fine balance in that is kind of where you want to meet, right? That the happy medium of learning to flow with life, but also take initiative, because I'm a kind of a plan guy. I like to, know what I'm doing ahead of time. I'm usually always early for everything I do. I'm up before usually everybody else. I'm in the gym already by the time people are still. I've already got a workout in, sometimes 2 workouts in by the time people wake up, and and this is my routine. I stick to it. So I urge you, right, if you're having struggle finding a path and whatever point you're at in your recovery and you're feeling stagnant, come up with a game plan, introduce new routines into your life and see how it works out. right? You got nothing to lose, right? As long as the routine is not embedded in drugs and alcohol, then I think that you'll be going good. And if it's not, participating in some sort of obsession, right? Because our addiction shows up in many ways. It shows up in, different obsessions. It could be sexual, it could be gambling, it can be mischief behavior, stealing. It could be numerous things where our addiction can show up, right, on our illness. So I think it's important to, if because routine, what it does is it helps you choose your path beforehand. You have like a plan, so this is my routine and this is what I'm going to do. And when you have something already chosen, you know what the destination is. That means all your little ideas along the way are less likely to deter you, because you've already chosen. Because there's nothing more powerful. There's nothing more powerful than a made up mind. Once your mind is made up and your aim is set, it's pretty much just burn the boats and take the island, right? And when you spend too much time on this decision fatigue and wishy-washy, go with the flow type mentality, it's like you're going to really struggle manifesting the things you love in your life. I'm not necessarily saying everything is this intense action plan, but what I am saying is you got to be a little bit more intentional about the life you want to live, especially if you're in some sort of form of suffering, right? At bare minimum, acts of service and getting out there in action will change your mind about life. And that's the key thing about all this, is just getting into action, getting out in the playground of life and just going, hey, here I am. What can I participate in? Right. And that's what routine does. It opens you up to so much. You start doing more things. You start adding things into your life, like gym. The gym could end up, meeting a friend, and then that friend could end up introducing you to your future wife. You never know what holds. You start a new routine of meetings, and you meet, a new sponsor, or your first sponsor, or whatever. It's important to participate in life with these routines, is because you never know what's on the other side of that door. And it's super important we connect and we start doing these active things in life, because then we can go, okay, that there's no more isolation. I've chosen to get up. I've chosen my purpose today. My purpose is for today. I'm going to stay clean and sober, and these are the tools that I'm going to use to allow that path to unfold, right? So I think that's all I have to share on routine. Shifting gears into negativity. Let's see what Google has to say about negativity. I think this is an important topic. All right. Negativity. Let's see. All right. Negativity. Ooh. Negativity is a pessimistic outlook, expecting the worst and focusing on the bad, often driven by the brain's negative bias. Ooh. Which prioritizes threats over positives. It manifests a cyclical, that's hard to pronounce for me. Thoughts, cyclical thoughts, self-criticism, and dwelling on problems, but can be managed through techniques like practicing gratitude, reframing thoughts, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, for those that don't know that, mindfulness, and seeking therapy, improving well-being, yada yada yada. Pessimistic outlook, expecting bad outcomes. It rains at the picnic. That's just an example. Filtering, let's see what they say. Noticing only the bad in the situation, right? Cynicism, general distrust of others and motives. Yeah, I've experienced that. Negative self-talk, believing I can't do anything right. Emotional reasoning, letting feelings define reality. I know a lot of people that do that, and I have done that a time or two myself. I feel like a failure, so I must be one. That's an example. Causes. Causes. negative bias, a evolutionary trait to remember, threat for survival. Ooh, that's such a good one, right? We'll dive a little bit into that. But mental health linked to anxiety, depression, and trauma. Environment, bringing upbringing and negative experiences, for sure. That one of the causes right there for a lot of us: upbringing, our parents, siblings, right? Negative experiences, those things that we talk about, trauma, those things that we can't let go of, right? um, Let's see. Challenging thoughts. Challenge thoughts. Identify and reframe negative self talk. Practice gratitude. This is how to manage it, by the way. Make lists of things you're thankful for, a habit. Grateful list. Mindfulness. Focus on the present moment through deep breathing and meditation. That one, I can tell you, is the most beneficial for me, right? Getting connected with your body, your spirit, your mind, all of it, right? There's something beautiful about connecting with all that is in this present moment. There's a beautiful thing to it. I get most connected after physical workouts, runs, 2 to 3 mile runs. I can feel that just beautiful connection to life. And also because there's a bunch of, dopamine and all that shit I was chasing out there with the pipe that's running through my system when I'm, working out. So it's just, I've found my new high. So, another way to manage it: seek help, therapy, cognitive, focus on positivity, intentionally savoring good moments. Basically, translation: celebrate your wins and engage in positive activities. Helping others, service. Connecting with people can break self-focus rumination, right? Effects on brain: increase stress hormones, cortisol, shrinks the hippocampus, memory center, can disrupt brain functions, reduce emotional control, right? So the reason I chose negativity is because I think that my biggest challenge is, and also what I've seen a lot of other people challenge with, they're not willing to face the negativity, right? I think that what most of my life, there's always been this spectrum of good and bad, right? And I've always been in this mind frame of judgment where I've judged everything, right? And that's what we get back to, that bias, that negative bias, right? I've lived with this negative bias view of all things that could be deemed negative, right? The bad that I've experienced in my life. But I believe that okay, so let's put it this way. Most of my life I've been I think that all this bad stuff that's happened to me is the reason why I behave the way I behave. The drugs, the abuse from family, the abuse from people wronging me, lying to me, right? Not really understanding that it took those experiences to also harness all the strength that I've also gotten to in my recovery and also my life, right? So all these bad decisions, these bad choices, these bad experiences that I like to hang on to are actually the cornerstone of most of my strength. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't go around prescribing pain or negativity, things like that, but pain can be the biggest coach, right? We've talked about this in the past, but I think the biggest thing is when you're on this spiritual journey, it's important to face the negative thoughts. Get support group around you, but it's important to face these negative thoughts, to face these thoughts, feelings, emotion, and really embrace some of this negativity and what's going on in the backdrop of your mind. Because if you're gonna, so what I was doing in most of my recovery is running from it because I was afraid of it. I was afraid to face it, and I thought if I had this overwhelming sense of positivity, that somehow it would overshadow that negative mindset. And don't get me wrong, it is important to be positive, But what I was doing to myself, I didn't realize that I was putting a positive band-aid on it and thinking that one day that negative stuff that was really affecting me, and the reason why I was being so negative, I was really just running from it. I wasn't really willing to face it. I wasn't willing to embody it and let it pass through. I was always battling it. Right. And I had to get to the point in my recovery where I was willing to truly face it. Right. And what I mean, an example. So when I start judging people, when I start hating on people, when I start, giving them the business in my mind, my initial reaction most of the time is to go, "Oh, Frank, you're such a piece of shit," right? And then they pull the judgment back on me. I'm a piece of shit. Why I shouldn't be judging this person, right? Oh my God. And then I feel guilt. Oh, man, I'm guilty. I'm convicting myself because I'm so guilty because I just murdered this person in my brain, right? And I've done all these things and talked shit about them, right? And then I go move from guilt to shame. And now I'm walking around with this shame. I'm like, why am I like this? What have I become, right? And then there it is. And and that all could be avoided for me if I just embrace it. I'm like, okay, I'm having these thoughts. My thoughts aren't me. These feelings aren't me. There are things I'm experiencing, and I allow them to pass through. And how do we do that? We do that through mindfulness, right? Is being mindful, taking deep breaths, pausing, and really getting connected, and start praying in those times of discomfort where we really start turning on the ass kicking machine, right? By all means, I do not have it figured out. And I'm working on this every single day, but this is stuff that I've come to realize in my recovery, that I need to be able to face the negativity with courage, and overcome it, right? And face it and stop battling it like it's some poison. It's a part of me. There's a darker side to me that I must face. Right. And it's important that I don't shame it to death, that I don't hate it to death, because then it goes further in the darkness. And darkness rests a little bit more embedded in my soul when I allow myself to not look at these things. Why am I having these thoughts? Why am I participating in these thought patterns? Why am I having this thought about this person? Right? Because there could be a reality where this person just does not belong in my immediate reality. And that's okay. But I'm never going to get to these conclusions if I don't dig deep and face this stuff. Right? I had to realize that my family wasn't for me. I had to walk away from my family. I had to not allow my older brother, and he's passed away of a fentanyl overdose, and that's the life we live. But I would not allow him to see my children. And it hurt me, but it was something I had to do for my family, for my daughters, because the reality is I stayed away from my children because I was high. When I was high, I'll be damned if I allow somebody else to be high. If I didn't allow myself around them high, then I'm not allowing, anybody. And that doesn't blood, nothing. Doesn't matter. You're not being high around my children. It's not happening. That's a line I drew in the sand many years ago, and I've tried to stay to it as much as possible. And my second daughter, thankfully, she doesn't have to see myself or her mom high ever. Especially if we keep doing the work, right? Nothing's guaranteed. I can't float on yesterday's achievements. So today I stick to my routine, right? We talk about facing this negativity. We gotta face it with some serious courage, because some of the stuff that we face within ourselves and this narrative that we believe about ourselves and the people around us, we gotta let go of, right? We gotta reevaluate it. We got to check our motives. We got to see what's true, what's within us. Is it working? Those are the most soulful questions you can ask yourself. I had to get to this point in my recovery, and it's an everyday thing. Like, what am I doing with this situation? How am I allowing it to have authority over me and my spirit? right? And these are these questions I really have to get to, especially on this walk of recovery, because if you're going to think that everything is just random, and you think God is putting these people and these lessons in your life just to fuck off, or just to think it's willy-nilly and I can just do whatever I want and there's no consequences. No, I don't choose to believe that. I used to believe that. I found out quick that that's not the case. In no matter what scenario I played out, things were always coming back and rearing their ugly faces and making me look at them, right? Forcing me to look at them. There was something spiritual beyond my control that was forcing me to look at them, that would come along on my path and my walk, no matter where I was, and it would humble me, and it would bring me to my knees, and then just enough for desperation to set in and to allow me to be on this path of change. Because you got to have a taste of desperation to truly change, to feel that fire, and that burn in your soul. For us addicts, sometimes that's what it takes. And that's what it took for this addict speaking, right? And so, when we get down to this nitty gritty and we start talking about negativity, is understanding turning pain into power is the best way to approach most of this life. And it goes back to the reframing concept, right? Taking pain and turning it into power. You think all that negative BS inside your head doesn't stem from pain, fear, and hurt? That's exactly what it stems from. And that's what I realized when I'm participating in this judgment and this hate within my heart and this indifference that I see upon other people, no matter what the scenario is, and I'm starting to hate them or have negative bias towards them. I realize that that's that's the thing inside me that's trying to take me out and separate me from others, separate me from my fellow man, my brothers and sisters out there, right? There's important thing to if you believe in God and devil, positive, negative, whatever, however you have to spin it, there's something out there that's happening that's trying to teach us, and we're learning from constantly. Right. So it's important that you walk this and indulge in this spiritual life along with all your other brothers and sisters in recovery, and learn from each other. Right. Nobody has it all figured out, but we all have our little bits and pieces figured out, and we share it with each other, especially here in the rooms of NA and AA, and any recovery group or the support groups like, Project Heart and all that. So I just want to do another point on negativity. I know it's a crazy topic, but negativity, if you're not careful, it could engulf your life, and you can get so blinded. Negativity can bring you to this limit or this limited existence where all you see is superficial, all you see is material surface stuff, and it's all egocentric. I've been there, and I get there from time to time, even in my recovery. I tell you, it's a much better life living through a soulful lens, being intact with your spirit and letting God flow through you. And the way we do that is to stay connected. I urge you, if you're out there and you're struggling with any type of higher power, you're struggling with any type of spiritual, if you're tainted right now in your soul, I urge you to start looking at the darkness within you with the sponsor, and start going over this fearless and moral inventories that we need to make here in recovery, right? I urge you, if you want to carry the fire, you want to carry the flame, you have to walk through the fire. So it's time for you to get through that muck, get through that pain, and all those negative thoughts, all the trauma you've been through, is get through it, because at the other side, you can be a pillar for somebody else. You can carry that flame, and you might be able to light the flicker in somebody else's soul, right? You can carry that message. I tell you what, every ounce of me is what I am is because somebody else decided to do that for me. So I urge you, right, to stay connected to your people in NA and AA and whatever spiritual group that you're connected with. I urge you. And so, that being said, let's face the negative thoughts. Let's face the negative bias this week. Let's face the negativity in our life. And let's not kill it. Let's face it. Let's embrace it. Let's heal it. Let's transmute it into something beautiful. Because sometimes what we deem as ugly, what we deem as a threat is not that. I mean, sometimes it is, trust me, but sometimes it's just our misperception upon the situation and our biased views that allow us to not see the complete truth, right? So I urge you to take a look at the things you're battling with inside yourself, the negative self-talk, the BS narrative that you've been enjoying and getting high off of. And I urge you to share it with somebody else that has your best interest in mind and that you could work with on it and watch your life change. So this week we're working on the topic of negativity. Let's bring some love and some healing to it. Let's bring some love and healing to this world and be that change you want to see in the world, because that's how it's done. The world is not going to change to what you think it is. You change within yourself and you bring that change to the world and you be that change to the world. I love you guys. This is Frank, and you listen to the F.D. Recovery. I love you guys. Peace. Thank you for tuning in to F.D. Recovery. A reminder, be kind to yourself on this journey of recovery. Also, call your sponsor. Get connected to local support groups. And for one day at a time, stay clean and sober.